In my late teens, I knew a cat who was a couple of years older than me, had his own place. He was a single brother. He had a 2-bedroom apartment, had his own car, didn't have a job. He was a freelance photographer. So I kind of thought he had it all figured out. He was a real cool cat, somebody I looked up to because he was the only person around my age range that was living like that. He used to give me a lot of advice. One of the things he told me that sticks in my mind is that in business, you've got quality, price, and time. And he said, when it comes to quality, you want to give the customer the best quality. The customer wants the best quality. So that's not really a negotiating point. He said, so then there's time, whether you work within the customer's time frame, and then there's price. You want to charge the customer as much as is reasonable. The customer wants you to charge them as little as possible. In that whole equation, you can only change one and possibly two things. Now, you both agree on quality. The customer wants top quality. You want to provide that. You're not flexible there. He said, now, you can either be flexible on price or you can be flexible in terms of time. And when it comes down to it, you'd be better off working within their time constraints than cutting your price. A little later in life, I got the lesson in school. A business that charges the lowest price, if that's their selling point, that we have the cheapest price, they're not really a business. They'll never have any customer loyalty, because the minute somebody charges a lower price or gives a better quality product at a comparable price, you lose all your customers. The next lesson in pricing I learned was trying to determine what to charge colleges and theaters when they wanted to bring me in. And I knew that there were people who charged tons of money to come in. But in my case, I never would know what to charge. And it seemed like if you charge too much, they wouldn't even negotiate with you. They would just disappear. You couldn't reach them on the phone anymore. They just kind of ghost you. So I was always coming in kind of low. And it hit me that that was a mistake when I visited a college, and the guy afterwards told me he couldn't believe what I charged. And I said, oh, was it too expensive for y'all? And he said, look, if we put it to you like this, there's a man around town, pretty popular, plays the cafes, he's a folk singer. He said, we brought him into the school and we paid him almost twice as much as you, and you built a name for yourself, which made me realize that what I was doing was a mistake, because they would have paid me twice as much as I charged them, and then it wouldn't have mattered that 2 or 3 other schools weren't talking to me anymore, because I would have gotten my price. And the last lesson on price that I recall, we used to think that when people didn't pay a lot of money to get into a venue, that meant they had a whole lot more extra money to spend on our product. But what we ended up learning was that the venues that charged the most money tended to attract people who had more disposable income. And the venues that didn't charge a lot, it turned out that those people didn't spend much at all. The more people paid to get into a venue, the more they tend to spend on product, the more discretionary income they seem to have. People who didn't really pay much to get into a venue didn't seem to have much in the first place. Used to hang out in London sometimes at a spot near the London Bridge. They called it Poetry in Motion. They would get a few hundred people, and they'd have other nights, right? They'd have like Harlem Renaissance nights or Caribbean nights and things of that nature. I recall talking to one of the promoters after the show one night, just sitting at the bar, and he mentioned to me they charge more than most other cultural events in London. They said what it was you could charge whatever you want, and people will pay it once. But you better be sure when you're charging that money that the value of the experience you're providing is greater than the money you're charging the people to get in. As long as they feel like they're getting a deal, it's going to grow.